All right. Hello, everybody. This is John Considine with Greater Mankato Growth. I serve as the Director of Regional and Business Intelligence. And with me today is Mike Hahn with the Small Business Development Center. Morning, Mike.
Good morning, John. How's it going?
Well, hanging in there, you know.
Yeah, I know what
busy.
you mean. This work at home stuff is relatively new. I have my 2-year-old lab looking at me right now like he wants me to play. So if you hear any background sound, it's probably coming from him.
Sure, that makes sense. I got my doors locked right now to try and keep the kids out, but we'll see what happens. They can be resourceful. So I thought Mike and I are going to talk a little bit about some of the resources that are out there for businesses. A couple of big ones right now are kind of the main levers to pull. You know, we're hopeful more will be coming along, but we wanted to do a quick video to highlight some of those resources that are out there. Really emphasize that the Small Business Development Center is a great resource, and we're going to show you how you can get connected to them. And we'll walk you through a little bit of a few of the websites pertaining to those resources, including the SBDCs. So to kick things off, Mike, we want to talk a little bit about, SBA. So there was federal legislation approving utilizing loans in disaster relief of COVID-19. And the state of Minnesota got the state approval for businesses here to be able to access those funds. So that came out, I think, late last week. Tell us a little bit about how that program works and some, general parameters.
Sure, John. These are a disaster loan for businesses. Basically, a business can qualify up to, it's based on need, it's based on the performance of the business, $2 million in assistance. The loan funds are intended essentially as working capital for those businesses impacted by the current COVID-19 virus, as far as downturn or just economic distress. These are available for-profit businesses and also private nonprofit businesses. The interest rate for small businesses, private small businesses, is 3.75%, and the interest rate as far as for nonprofits is around 2.75%. Some people state, do I get to go ahead and put the amount that I need in there? No. What you need to do is basically submit your information, and then the SBA will decide as far as what the loan amount that they'll give you. Loans are offered with a long-term repayment. They will go up to 30 years, but that's evaluated on a case-by-case basis. There is a 12-month deferral for the first payment. This is something that's new. Last week we were told they were only going to go 4 months. Now they're talking 12 months. And right now we're seeing about a 3 to 4 week response rate. One thing I'd like to have you do, John, is you can apply for this 2 ways. If you're a confident business person, if you have an accountant or maybe a good banker, or you have all your accounts on board and gathered, you can apply for it online, and you can do this through the SBA's disaster site. So John, let's kind of take a look at that as well.
Sure. Let me do a screen share here to show everybody
Sure.
some of the websites that are going to be useful. All right, so hopefully everybody sees the page. I want to highlight Greater Mankato Growth's website. So we do have the information Mike's talking about with SBA on our website. If you go down to business resources, up here you see the web address for everything that Greater Mankato Growth has put together. And then if you scroll down, you can take a look at the business-specific resources. And so right above that here is the SBA Loans for businesses impacted by COVID-19. And let's pull up SBA's website, and Mike can show a little bit more about what's available there.
Well, from here, John, you can take a look as far as areas eligible for SBA disaster loans. Yes, Minnesota declaration went through late last week. And if a small business is confident enough, they can essentially apply for the loan through the SBA, right through the apply for a loan with SBA segment there. SBA states that you need to apply for this through their website. You don't do it through a bank. So this is a little bit different than other SBA products. What you need to do is just go to the site, select apply online. You have to put in a login name. One thing I would really stress to small businesses applying for this loan, make sure that you keep that login name, because there's no way to retrieve it. There's no way as far as resetting it, and all your information that's going to be processed through the SBA will be with that login name. Now, we've been having some difficulties with the SBA as far as you can imagine, this is a nationwide disaster. So they're suggesting that if people are going to apply, do it during off times, because I can vouch for a few phone calls that I've gotten this week of businesses just frustrated because they're trying to apply during the day and they haven't had any chance to basically get into the site. They don't even get any type of return. What they get when they try to apply is just the continuous spinning on their web browser, okay? So if you don't want to get roped into that continuous spinning, SBA recommends that you apply between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. daily. There's also been some cases in which the browser that you're using for web searches and just for web in general, Chrome is one that's kind of crashing with the SBA application. So SBA recommends that you use Edge or Explorer. And then you can apply that way. It's pretty straightforward. Once again, as I stated earlier, you don't get to essentially put in the amount of money. SBA will basically review it. They will give you a decision. I was told yesterday that the first batch of Minnesota's applications went through. There were some that were denied. If you do get denied, they will come back to the Minnesota District SBA office in the Twin Cities. They will contact you directly, and then they will work with you in providing you with an SBA consultant. Usually it's through us, through the SBDC here in South Central Minnesota. And then we will work with you as far as getting that together, getting the information that they need, and then we would reapply. So, unfortunately, there's some loopholes in this from the standpoint that it's going to take time. And I know that many of our small businesses are hurting right now, and they just don't have the time. And that's something that we need to work with them on. That's something which we're working, as I know that Greater Mankato Growth and you, John, are working on through our policymakers and see what we can do to provide immediate assistance to our small businesses.
Hey, Mike, I got a quick question for you.
Sure, you bet, John.
One thing that I've heard was, on some of these webinars that SBA has been having with local lenders and partners, that folks should really be focusing on having all of their financials in order when they're ready to apply. One of the biggest hiccups could be as if they submit incomplete applications. Is that something you've been hearing as well?
Yeah, it is. One thing that we're hearing basically on the fact that, this is based on credit score. We're not getting any input back as far as from the SBA, as far as what is that credit score line. Right. And hopefully we'll hear something this week or have some idea as far as what that is. But as you know, some of these businesses, especially within the past few weeks, they've seen their credit kind of evaporate as long as with customers. So that's been a big challenge as well.
And I know I was hearing rumors that SBA is going to be working with a third party to help streamline the application process. I don't know if that's been pushed out there yet.
I know that when we met earlier in the week, as far as with SBA, there was talk about adding some more capacity. I'm not sure if that's a third party or not, John.
Okay.
So I'm going to get back to this from the standpoint, if you feel confident, if you feel like you have all your financial information, and this kind of gets back to the question that you asked earlier, John, what do I need? Well, if I was a small business person, what you need to gather right now is basically your past 5 years of financials. So your internal annual income statement, annual balance sheet, and also your past 5 years of IRS tax submissions. Okay, so have that information together. You might want to look at this as being a 6-month, as far as looking at things over a 6-month view. I know some businesses right now, as far as with this disaster, are working on cash flows and projecting out on a weekly basis, which is not a bad idea as well. And I know that some of the stuff, some of our entrepreneurs are very gifted with their products or the service that they offer, or they might be gifted in marketing. But when it comes to finances, when it comes to basically putting projections together, that's something that they might not be good at. So we invite you to essentially go through our website at myminnesotabusiness.com. And in the upper right-hand corner of this website is the Apply for Service. And we will assign an SBDC finance consultant to you free of charge. These are basically ex-entrepreneurs. They are bankers who are retired that we hire as private consultants who help us work with clients. They're provided to our businesses free of charge, and they will help you in putting that information together as well. And then we will work with you. And I highly advise people that from the standpoint that if this is your first time around and doing this, don't do it alone. We have our consultants, we have availability. We kind of ramped up our finance team, so we have capacity. Go through myminnesotabusiness.com. Hit this. This is a prompt that takes you to basically 3 different sections. It's pretty basic information. Even though our on-site location on Riverfront Drive is closed as of right now, we are all working from home. The staff is. We're answering the telephones. We're answering emails. And we will make sure that we get back to you in a very prompt manner, usually in the same day, and then work with you in assigning a consultant. So utilize this tool. This is a free service that's being provided by the University at Minnesota State Mankato, also the SBA, the Department of Employment and Economic Development from the state of Minnesota, and various community partners like GMG throughout South Central Minnesota. So use that free service if you can.
Absolutely. So there's a couple other resources we want to touch on as well. One is the shared work program. More information can be found on Minnesota's unemployment insurance website. Up here in the corner, we have a link, the web address, and you can navigate to that page as well if you Google MN Deed shared work, and that will bring you to the web page that can get you more information on it. This is a resource that can be provided to employers that are considering doing layoffs as an alternative. If you're looking to do a layoff and you say have 40 hours of work but 2 employees, you can reduce the hours of those employees somewhat, and then the uninsurance program can also cover a portion of those salaries. So another good resource that you got to consider. And finally, we want to highlight the Small Business Emergency Loan Program. Again, here's the web address to get more information. This is something that just got rolled out real recently, Mike, and it seems to be a really powerful tool with some of the great terms.
Yeah, we are hoping that this is something that can be turned around much, much quicker than the SBA loan. This is being offered by the state of Minnesota through the Department of Employment and Economic Development. These are loan amounts between $2,500 to $35,000 per qualifying business. This loan is a 50% forgivable loan with 0% interest rates. Now, my understanding is that you can apply for this. You don't need to apply for the SBA product. But if you apply for the SBA product, and if you're awarded the SBA product through the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, then you have to repay this back. And, I think this is a good process. I have not seen the application out on this yet, John, maybe you have, but I know that in talking with the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, they are kind of going to be the fiscal agent for this part of the state. And I know that with our collaboration and working with them, also working with GMG, we'll be pushing this information out as well.
Absolutely. So yeah.
One thing, John, I'd like to mention is that we have a lot of what I call 1099s. These are consultants. These are maybe hairstylists, barbers that rent a chair or rent space, and they're kind of their own contract workers. In talking with SBA Minnesota State Director Brian McDonald, he is recommending that businesses that receive 1099s to apply for the SBA loan, making sure that you have all that information together. Once again, as I stated earlier, your past 5 years of your own consulting firms, balance sheets, income statements, along with your past 5 years of income tax submissions, and then apply for the SBA loan. And in talking with Deed is also would take a look at 1099 filings or filers as well to apply for this loan. So just because of the fact that you might not necessarily be a sole proprietorship, but you're a 1099 private consultant, these loans are something which you can consider to apply for as well.
Yeah, that SBA one, I mean, it does have the possibility of a great term up to 30 years, and that 12-month deferral makes it, pretty appealing. That's why you got to take a real good look at that one. And it also is the largest pot of money. When you're taking a look at the state program, there are some, limitations in scope. First off, you want to be able to take a look at the executive orders, which impacted certain industries across the state. So those are the industries that this program is eligible for. It's possible in the future that, those industries may be expanded upon if there's other executive orders, but, the state Department of Employment and Economic Development will need to get approval before they could expand that industry scope at all.
You bet. And, as you stated earlier, things are changing. I mean, this is a very fluid situation. I know that there are other ideas, somewhat relative creative, as far as to assist small business during this period. And I know that you're working with communities, and I've talked to a few communities that are looking at seeing what they can do to maybe free up some economic development reserves that they've been collecting to help small businesses as well.
All right, I'm going to bring it back to you and I, Mike, so we can just do a little bit of wrap up here. So
sure.
One thing to really make sure that folks are aware of is that the SBDC is a great resource for being able to navigate some of these tools. And we highlighted, Mike's website. Be sure to check that out. We do have a pretty comprehensive list of things on the Greater Mankato Growth website. And we're also pushing out information as it's made available on state and federal legislation at greatermankatoblog.com. Patrick Baker with Greater Mankato Growth is currently reading through some of the federal legislation and going to be writing up a blog very shortly to highlight how that's going to be impacting businesses in our area. You got some closing thoughts, Mike, that you want to share with anybody, or?
Well, I would just say from the standpoint, this is a very, very just a unfortunate situation. The business aspect is important, but make sure that people, kind of keep things in perspective, keep their own care in mind. Absolutely. As well. And, utilize us, as I tell people all the time, utilize our village, utilize our community. We have a great community as far as a standpoint, as far as building entrepreneurship. I know both you and I serve on the organizing group for 1 Million Cups. We're hoping to resurrect that through video conferencing in the future, but utilize these resources through GMG, SBDC, utilize these programs through Deed, through SBA. And if you need help, ask us. Absolutely.
Well, perfect. All right, Mike. Well, I'm starting to hear maybe some kids rummaging around outside. So
hey, my dog's on the couch. He's almost asleep.
Oh, that's perfect. What a good
All
dog.
right. There we go.
Right. Thanks so
John.
much, Mike. Bye-bye.
You bet.